Before I get started, I'd like to give credit to Nancy Becker, Larry East, Brandon Hildman for a lot of my information I will share. Baseball, America's favorite pastime. I've been playing since I was 3 years old. My favorite thing about baseball is hearing the crack of the bat and hearing the crowd cheer as they see the ball soar over the fence. Running the bases and meeting the team at home plate to receive high fives and attaboys from the team is a great feeling. I've only got to experience this once so far. But it's a great feeling. Baseball has taught me that effort, attitude, and hard work are very important. These can change the course of the game. I have to admit, my attitude is not always the best. But your attitude can change how you see the world. When you look at something, do you first see the positive or the negative? Are you glass half full or glass half empty kind of person? Maybe you need to change your perspective. Let me tell you a little story. Once there was a boy playing alone who was heard to say, "I'm the greatest hitter in the world." He tossed up the ball into the air, swung, missed, strike one. Undaunted, he picked up the ball, threw it into the air, and said to himself, "I'm the greatest hitter who ever lived." And he swung at the ball again, and again he missed, strike two. He paused for a moment to examine his bat and ball carefully. Then, a third time, he threw the ball into the air. "I'm the greatest player who ever lived," he said. He swung the bat hard, missed a third time. He cried out, "Wow, strike three. What a pitcher." "I'm the greatest pitcher in the world." His perception definitely changed. Baseball is a game where players fail more often than they succeed. And sometimes our Christian's life can be like baseball. Baseball is an interesting game. There's a lot of strategies that go on behind the scenes as managers, coaches, and players decide what pitch to throw, what defense alignment to use, and who is going to cover what base in case the ball is hit there. But what's unique about the game of baseball is that it is a game where even the best players fail more often than they succeed. The world of baseball is a dramatic presentation of some of life's most important and universal lessons. I'm not saying that Abner Doubleday intended to make a theological statement about the meaning of life when he invented the game of baseball. But he did invent a game that traumatizes the very human predicaments of trying to measure up to the standards of perfection and always falling short. You know, being a group of imperfect people seeking the perfection, maybe you heard of that somewhere? Paul talked a lot about those standards of perfection that are impossible to meet. To Paul, those standards were the Hebrew law. Paul said the law is a curse, always reminding us that we are not enough. The law, he says, is set up to show us that we cannot do right. We can never be good enough because we cannot live up to the standards. All have sinned and fall short to the glory of God, Paul said in his letter to the Romans. Baseball is a lot like that. Baseball is a game of measuring things against impossible standards, a game of numbers. Everything is added up and written down somewhere. You can read about RBIs, ERAs, and fielding percentages compared against every other player in the league. A player's batting average is printed on a box score. It is announced over the radio and flashing bright lights at the stadium. All carry out to 3 decimal points. Nobody says he's hitting pretty well. They say he's hitting 276. It's all about precise measurements. There is no way to pretend success. There's no way to hide failure. The numbers are right there in print. Best hitter in baseball have a batting average of around 300. And you might say, well, if the best hitter hits 300, then that must be pretty good. But that really means is that the best hitter only gets a hit about 3 out of 10 times in that bat. That's not a very good percentage for most jobs, but if you get 3 out of 10 in baseball, then they'll give you $1 million salary. that for several years in a row, they'll put you in the Hall of Fame. Take Mickey Mantle, for instance. Mantle is one of the all-time greats of the game. He hit towering home runs from either side of the plate. Yet Mickey Mantle struck out 1,710 times in his career. That's a lot of strikeouts. But he is one of the all-time great stars. Ty Cobb, the best hitter ever to play the game, it says, had a lifetime batting average of 366. What that means is Ty Cobb either struck out or hit into an out 6 or 7 times every 10 at-bats. In other words, Ty Cobb failed as a hitter more than he succeeded. And so have all the good hitters ever to play the game, they fail more than they succeed. Nobody is very good when measured against the absolute batting standards of 1,000. That's a tough standard to fall short of with the whole world watching. Everyone falls short of it. No one has even came halfway to perfection over the course of a season. All have fallen short. Paul would appreciate the similarities in the batting average standards and the inhabitability of anyone to come anywhere near living up to it. Baseball is hard, judging masters of anyone who sets out to be good at it. And life is a lot like that too. Have you ever felt that way as a Christian? Have you ever felt like you were failing in your Christian life more often than you were doing right? I certainly have. It's the thing that most Christians struggle with. So what do we feel like when we are failing in our walk with God? Don't we try harder to do what's right? We tell ourselves that we can do better and live better, and we try to clean up our own lives. Baseball players do the same thing when they get into a hitting slump. I know I do sometimes. They forget the fundamentals of hitting, like keeping their eye on the ball. When their batting average drops, they try harder. They take extra batting practice or examine their swing on a video with a hitting coach to try to see what they are doing wrong. And sometimes it works. They figure out their mistakes, correct them, and then start hitting again, and their batting average goes up. More often than not, they slip back into old habits and don't keep their fundamentals of their swing right. Before you know it, they're back in a slump, not hitting very well. But there's another side to baseball, a side that is more like a gift of grace. In baseball, everyone gets a chance to bat. Everyone gets the same number of balls and strikes. Each team gets the same number of outs. Maybe this makes the game even more fair than life itself. Because in baseball, you don't run out of time unless it rains. Everyone gets their innings, as many as it takes to decide who wins and who loses. As a great baseball theologian, Yogi Berra said, "It ain't over till it's over." In baseball, there is always the possibility that the unexpected will happen. I've seen that before. There is always time for redemption. Take the case of Bob Brenly. In 1986, he was playing third base for the San Francisco Giants. In the fourth inning of the game, the Braves, Brenly made an error on a routine ground ball. 4 batters later, he kicked away another grounder. And then while he was scrambling after the ball, he overthrew the catcher trying to get the runner out at home. He made 2 errors on the same play. A few minutes later, he muffed yet another to become the first player in the 20th century to make 4 errors in 1 inning. Now, those of us have made very public errors in one situation or another can easily imagine how he felt on his long run off the field at the end of the inning. But then in the bottom of the 5th, Brenly hit a home run. Then in the 7th, he hit a base-loaded single, driving in 2 runs and tying the game. Then in the bottom of the 9th, Brenly came up to bat again with 2 outs. He ran the count up to 3-2 and then hit a massive home run into the left field seats to win the game for the Giants. Brenly's scorecard for that day came out to 3 hits and 5 at-bats, 2 home runs, 4 errors, 4 runs allowed, 4 runs driven in, including the game winner. What if he would just quit? they would have lost the game. But it ain't over till it's over, so don't give up. Certainly, life is a lot like that, a mixtures of hits and errors. And there is a grace in that. Grace means that you always have another chance. Grace won't exactly erase your errors, but it will give you another chance to make up for them. If you're batting 200, God will hit 850, two more, then fill in the gaps. It ain't over till it's over. There are still surprises waiting. Paul put it in this like this. In Romans 3:23 through 26, since all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God, they're justified by his grace as a gift through redemption, which in Christ Jesus. Because in his divine forbearance, Jesus has passed over sins. Even Paul himself made a lot of errors. He was a Pharisee, the ultimate enemy of Jesus, the feared and hated prosecutor of the early disciples. He had attempted to destroy the church by eliminating its members. But Jesus found him and turned him around and set him on a new course, building a church in which forgiveness of Christ was offered to everyone. No membership tests, no lines of birth or race or accomplishment. A church for people who made errors. All means all. People are welcomed in Jesus' church and still make errors. In fact, Jesus spent most of his time with people who had made a lot of errors. People who went over for 4 in life. People who had often dropped the ball, losers we might call them, uneducated, fishermen, prostitutes, people afflicted with unpleasant diseases and mental disorders, tax collectors, adulteresses, the outcast, the poor, the unacceptable, and the lost. Jesus came to seek and save the lost. In conclusion, in Christ, the scorekeeper cancels the errors, gives the loser another chance, and starts a new beginning. Jesus lives past the errors to the possibility of the future. With God, it ain't over till it's over. Nothing is finished until God is finished with it. No one is finished until God has completed with them. One of the chances that we all get in life is the chance to make errors. And all of this due to the extent, some more than others. But with Christ, we always have another chance. We always have the possibility of a comeback. God's life is always seeking us, always following us, always overlooking the errors and giving us still another inning, still another chance to bat. It ain't over till it's over.